You got your appraisal back, and it's not what you expected. This video is designed to help you know when you have a defect in the appraisal and what you can do about it. Who can order an appraisal? Oftentimes we have borrowers who are preparing to refinance their home or to purchase a home, and they undertake to order an appraisal to facilitate that transaction. The thing that a borrower must keep in mind that under the current regulatory guidelines, a lender must order the appraisal if it's for a federally insured loan. So the question is, who can order the appraisal? Well, it just depends. Who's the appraisal for? What's the intended use? Who's going to use the appraisal? Are you a client or an intended user? Appraisal standards require that the appraisal be written to meet the specific needs of the intended user based on the intended use of the appraisal. So it's critical to make sure that you understand who the appraisal is for, what it's going to be used for, and make sure that the appraiser is clear as to the intended use of the appraisal. If the appraisal is to be used for a federally insured loan, the appraisal needs to be ordered by the lender or their agent. They're often referred to as an appraisal management company or an AMC. The lender will set the requirements for the appraisal and oftentimes have certain appraisal requirements that need to be completed by the appraiser. Many of the residential loans being originated today are bundled and packaged and sold in the secondary financial markets. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac are two of the major secondary market participants. We also have government insured loans by FHA or the VA. They have established reporting guidelines and standards, often referred to as UAD. The UAD coding in appraisals are designed to help the users of the appraisal, but are not really intuitive for many of your real estate agents, borrowers, and property owners. The result of some of this coding, as we will discuss in a little bit, has dumbed down the way that some of the appraisal analysis is being completed. For example, you have two homes that are good quality homes, but one is a little better than the other. The UAD guidance suggests that that good quality home is a Q3. Well, when there's a material difference between two good quality homes, often we find that adjustments are not being appropriately applied, which results in some of the analysis being less than reliable. The UAD coding is designed to assist the secondary markets in aggregating the data that is being provided in the appraisal, and for them to be able to do their own statistical analysis using that data. So as you look at this example, you will see an N at the top, a res, and a gate. That coding suggests that that's a neutral residential neighborhood that is gated. The lot size is reported in square footage up to an acre. You go down to the next section and it says N-res. That's dealing with view, indicating that that is a typical or neutral residential view. The next is the design. The DT1 is that it's a detached ranch-styled home. The next is Q3, suggesting it's a good quality home. C1 stands for condition, with a condition rating from 1 to 5. Each of these elements are designed to streamline the way that the information is being reported to the lender, but may make it a little more difficult for those who are not familiar with the coding to interpret and understand. Perhaps you have heard of a software application that is used by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac called Collateral Underwriter. Collateral Underwriter is an analysis or an analytics tool that is used to assess risk associated with the property that is going to be the collateral for a loan. Part of the UAD coding requires that the appraiser determine an absolute property rating that once has been established, the appraiser can't change it. The ratings are designed to quantify quality, condition, and other physical aspects of the property. Collateral Underwriter will then look at a multitude of properties that have been submitted into their system and determine what the consistency of that quality or condition rating is. Appraisers who are not consistent in the application of those ratings will receive a nastygram from the secondary market saying that there's some inconsistency in the way that the ratings are being applied. Often when there's a problem with an appraisal, it has something to do with communication. We find that sometimes the way that the appraiser is looking and analyzing and communicating is different than the borrower or the real estate agent. And to eliminate some of that confusion, getting everyone on the same page is essential. When the appraiser is provided with incomplete or incorrect information about the property or the comparable sales, the resulting value is called into question and may not be reliable or accurate. Perhaps one of the best things that you can do if you're having your property appraised is to provide accurate information about your property. The appraiser must provide a sales history on your property if it's sold within the last 3 years. So if you've purchased your property, it's always a good idea to provide the appraiser with that information and then discuss any improvements that you've made to the property. The appraiser needs to have accurate site information dealing with issues such as HOA dues, access to the property, is it public or private? Are you on a well or a septic system? The building improvements, discuss the quality and condition of the improvements, particularly if improvements have been made to the property, and to outline energy features. We've developed a property information worksheet that can be provided to you that can help to be proactive in making sure that when your appraisal is being done, the appraiser has the best possible information. The worksheet is designed to break the property into its component parts, talking about the various elements that are required to be reported in the appraisal, such as remodeling or updating of a kitchen, when it was done. I always like to get the cost information along with a description. The same with appliances and other elements associated with that part of the property. Other elements that can oftentimes have an impact are remodeling of bathrooms, heating and cooling systems, and it's particularly important to identify elements that are not readily visible. Oftentimes a heating and cooling system may be concealed and it may be difficult to determine if that system has been replaced or modified. Roofing is always an element that can be a concern, and it's important to discuss if that roof has been repaired, how long ago, and what you did. We are beginning to see a lot more in the way of energy features such as solar systems. Currently, if the solar system is not owned, if it's leased, it's considered to be personal property. Disclosing the nature of your solar system, how much it costs, and particularly how much it's saving you on a monthly basis is essential in trying to determine the contributory value of that improvement. There are other elements that help provide a high-performance home, such as your geothermal heat pumps, upgraded windows, added insulation, and other design elements that can greatly improve the cost of ownership for your home. Providing specific information about your property, particularly things that are not readily apparent, or recent repairs that have been made to the property, help the appraiser aggregate data that will be useful in developing a reliable appraisal result. The key to an accurate appraisal is in the analysis of the sales data that is being used to value the property. The sales comparison approach on residential properties is the primary approach to value. It starts with finding properties that are most physically similar to the property being appraised, taking the total sales price, and analyzing the differences between the property that is being appraised and the properties being used as comparable sales. Lenders are very interested in having accurate, reliable market value analysis performed. Oftentimes, we find that replacement cost may not actually equal market value. Appraiser alive who hasn't had someone contest their appraisal results because of comparable sales being offered based on a sales price per square foot. Let's take a look at this exhibit that helps to understand the problems with solely looking at the sales price per square foot. You have a property that is the subject that is selling for $210,000, and the sales price is $116.67 per square foot. Comp 1 is selling for $175, 1,450 square feet, and is $120.69 per square foot. As we look at the analysis, we find that even though this property is selling at a higher price per square foot, when the actual differences are analyzed, it reflects a lower value than the Comp 2, which is selling at $220,000 for $2,000 or 2,000 square feet for $110 a square foot, which, when the physical differences are analyzed, reflects a value of $210,000. So how do you select comparable sales? Oftentimes we see people looking solely at the sales price per square foot rather than at properties where the physical characteristics are similar to the property that is the subject of the appraisal. So the thing that you need to be aware of is that selecting comparable sales based solely on the price per square foot will not result in an accurate analysis. The question is how much is a swimming pool worth per square foot? Or what is the per square foot value of a view or age differences or other elements? It becomes a difficult analysis unless you're highly skilled at reducing that analysis to a per square foot basis. So when analyzing comparable sales, we select the sales that are most physically similar to the property being appraised. The question is, will a typically motivated buyer consider the property that is being offered as a comparable sale as an interchangeable property? Buyers looking for a single level home with 3,000 square feet consider a home with a basement that has a total of 3,000 square feet. Is that a comp? Well, it may not be. Oftentimes, someone looking for a home with everything on one level will not purchase a home that has stairs for a variety of reasons. We then adjust for the relative difference between the properties, such as location, age, view, size, quality, to determine the market reaction based on that transactional data. One of the first elements that we need to consider in analyzing the reliability of the comparable sales approach is the nature of a changing market. Right as this period of time, we've seen dramatic increases in prices, so that comparable sales that are dated, that took place over a longer period of time, tend to reflect lower values. One of the places that I think is a reliable place to get some general market trend analysis for your property is on the FHFA HPI calculator offered through the Federal Housing Finance Agency. This exhibit reflects some of the analysis that you can get for free from that site, which can help you determine, based on your metropolitan area, what the general trend may be. That general trend may not apply specifically to your subject property, but it gives you a general idea of the market trend for that area and can be useful in determining if market values are changing and if appropriate analysis was performed by the appraiser in using sales that were somewhat dated. I'm confident that pretty much everyone has heard the idea that in real estate it's location, location, location. Well, that's a debatable element, but there are clearly locational factors that can affect the reliability of appraisal results. A couple of things that I like to look at is differences in predominant values. We generally find homes that are in neighborhoods where property values are higher perform at a higher level than areas that where predominant values are lower, even though the homes may be similar in physical characteristics. So we're looking at differences in overall neighborhood quality and condition, differences in neighborhood age, convenience to schools, public and commercial services, subdivision amenities, and proximity to adverse features such as noise or smell. These differences can have a significant impact on the price that someone will pay for a property. Using this example, Bloomington Hills is an area that is an older established neighborhood that does not have concrete curb gutter sidewalks and streetlights. You can go a fairly short distance to a newer area where these subdivision amenities are better, and you will find on average a $20,000 difference in the in the lot prices, which is solely due to the difference in location, which is attributed to the difference in the subdivision amenities or improvements. Lot size is the next element of comparison. The question is will someone pay more for a home on a larger lot than an otherwise similar home on a smaller lot? The answer is usually they will, unless there's some feature such as physical characteristics that render the lot size insignificant. Usually we find small differences in lot size are imperceptible to most buyers, but it is an element that needs to be considered. This following gives some ideas on how that lot size difference can be calculated. Views can have a significant impact on the price that a property will sell for. I've got a few illustrations where you've got lots in a same subdivision where the only difference is the view. And we see that these views can vary dramatically. Over the years, we've performed analysis and have found that view ratings kind of fall into various categories so that they can be calculated and quantified in trying to measure the difference between two properties with varying views. The result is that view is a significant element that can be somewhat difficult to quantify, but most certainly can have an impact on value. And if appropriate analysis isn't performed, can result in results that don't reflect the market. Design elements can have an impact on the price that someone will pay. Using this illustration, we find that two-story homes tend to be a little less expensive to build on a price per square foot basis. Marshall Swift, in this illustration, suggests that that difference is $6.20 a square foot. The market will ultimately determine if that design element is significant, but in many of the markets that we deal, we find that two-story homes are usually selling for a lower price per square foot than an otherwise similar single-level home. Therefore, design differences need to be accurately recognized and quantified when homes of different design are being used as comparable sales. Quality is another essential element that has a significant impact on the price that someone will pay for a property, and it can be rather difficult because we find that homes generally do not fall within an average or good quality rating. It's usually somewhere in between. We do find, though, that the price difference based on some of the national cost sources suggests that there can be dramatic differences in cost from one quality category to the next. Now, where this runs into a problem for your appraisal is that when an appraiser has rated a home as average quality, but it's got some upgraded features and it's not quite good, how do you recognize those differences and accurately measure that? And oftentimes we find that it tends to be easier just to ignore it, which can then result in results that are not accurately reflected by the market. My wife once told me that her favorite color was new. We find that ages of a home can have a significant impact on its price, especially as we look at the homes that have been neglected or have not been remodeled or updated over a period of time. We've generally found that once homes get past about 30 years old, the actual age becomes a far less significant factor, and the effective age, based on improvements that have been made, will have a more profound impact. Oftentimes on appraisals, you'll see appraisers making adjustments at $500 to $1,000 per year based on the actual age difference. In my view, that adjustment is poorly supported, if not relevant at all, and should be a red flag in determining whether an appropriate analysis was performed based on the actual or effective age differences. There is a perception in the market that the more bedrooms a house has, the better the value will be. And certainly in some neighborhoods that may be true, particularly if it's a neighborhood with large families. However, we need to look at the neighborhood. Who's the typical buyer? Does the buyer prefer to have more small rooms versus fewer large rooms? Homes in retirement communities may prefer to have fewer bedrooms but larger living spaces, whereas homes in a family neighborhood may prefer to have more private space in the bedrooms. The key on this is to determine who the buyers are and what their preferences are, and make sure that appropriate analysis is made when the bedroom count is relevant. The number of bathrooms can have an impact on the price that someone will pay for a home. When we were first married, our first home had one bathroom. And I can tell you that a one bathroom home is far less desirable than a two bathroom home when you have more than one person living in the home. And so you may find that there is a marginal value difference between the first and second bathroom. Maybe that second bathroom may be worth a lot more than a fourth or fifth bathroom. But it is an element that needs to be considered. Statistical analysis can be performed to determine what the market is willing to pay for these bathrooms. A simple cost element might be an option for determining the value difference for additional bathrooms. Size is a critical element and is oftentimes misunderstood. We oftentimes see people who look at the total sales price per square foot and try to impute that price per square foot to the size difference of a home. Well, the thing that we sometimes fail to recognize is that total sales price per square foot takes into account the lot, the garage, the landscaping, and all of these other elements. Ultimately, we have to determine what the impact of an additional size may be. For example, a 2,000 square foot home, how much more will an additional 100 square feet add to the property? And we usually find that it is far less than the total price per square foot. Basements oftentimes can pose a challenge in determining the contributory value of this below grade space. Oftentimes we have property owners who look at that basement space as part of the total living space and are confused when they get an appraisal that shows that the house has, for example, 1,500 square feet above grade and 1,500 square feet below grade. They're looking at as a 3,000 square foot home. But for purposes of analysis, those spaces are broken into their component parts and analyzed separately. What we find is replacement cost tends to be about 50 to 60% of the main floor living space. Therefore, the below grade space tends to contribute value, but at a lower rate. So a careful analysis of that contributory value must be performed. Oftentimes we find appraisers who don't do a good job of supporting the contributory value of that space, and that can be an area where there may be a deficiency. Energy features associated with the home can have a significant impact on value, but many times the energy features may cost more than they will contribute to the overall value of the property. So the first question that we have to analyze is, does the improvement add anything to the overall value of the property? Will people pay for it? The second thing is, does it save me any money in my utility bills? And if so, how much is it saving me? Usually, if I can develop a savings for a specific feature or characteristic with the property, it gives me a basis for which I can support some kind of contributory value for that improvement. Garages and shops, other specialty accessory building improvements can have a significant impact on the marketability and the value of the property. Looking at Marshall Swift or some other national cost source may be a way to support or develop some kind of contributory value for a specific improvement. So if a garage costs $25 to $30 a square foot, and those costs will vary from one area to the next, then you can develop, based on cost, the contributory value per garage bay, for example, in this kind of a property. Now, we will oftentimes see that that may vary, and it could vary significantly based on the size, the neighborhood, and the desirability, so that the contributory value may be more than the replacement cost. But it becomes a basis by which we can determine the reasonableness that the analysis within the appraisal has been developed. Accessory improvements associated with porches, patios, decks, and related improvements can add significantly to the market appeal of a property, and may be an area where in the appraisal they are not given adequate consideration. On-site landscaping and other yard improvements can have a significant contribution to value. However, it's easy to spend more than you will receive back in terms of value. I had a friend who had a home that was about a $400,000 home, and they spent $125,000 in landscaping, gazebos, swimming pools, and so forth. Their belief was, is we will never sell this home. It's our final home. Well, a couple of years later, they sell the home, and the improvements added to the value of the property, but at a significantly lower rate than what they had spent. Over the years, I've developed a rule of thumb is that usually when it comes to yard improvements, if you spend more than about 10% of the total property value, you're probably reaching a point of diminishing returns. Swimming pools in most markets will not bring the full replacement cost. Some they might, but most of the markets that I've been involved with, they don't. A rule of thumb is you're oftentimes at 50% of your replacement cost. That is always going to be based on the individual characteristics of a specific market. Specialty features can be difficult to value and may not bring replacement cost. So some of the things that you can consider in trying to determine the overall desirability is, are these improvements typical of the neighborhood? Would a typical buyer pay extra for the feature? Lender guidelines require that an appraiser bracket some of these specialty features, which can be difficult. Even if the improvement contributes value, it may be difficult to demonstrate based on market activity what the specific improvement is going to contribute to the overall characteristic of that property. So as you consider putting these improvements in, you may want to consider the impacts you will have in trying to borrow money or sell the property. So we've spent a great deal of time talking about the appraisal, the UAD coding, and the analysis that is associated with the appraisal, all to get us to the point of when should I appeal when I think the appraisal has a problem. Well, first of all, the preceding analysis is simply based on establishing the criteria that when there's a material defect in the appraisal is the time when you can appeal. We talked about the price per square foot versus the total price and the relative market differences between that. When we find that things are out of whack with what the market should be, you may have the grounds to appeal the appraisal, and in the process of doing that is that you contact the lender, not the appraiser. The approach at this point is that you are specific with where you believe the deficiencies lie. Are there factual errors in the appraisal? Are there characteristics that are not adequately analyzed? Are there comparable sales that should have been used but were not? Once you have identified the deficiencies, be very specific in outlining the areas of deficiency and contact the lender, not the appraiser, to have and file a reconsideration of value. You may hire an appraiser or have an appraiser that you have an association with help you determine, first of all, is the appraisal deficient and worthy of a reconsideration of value? And second, what are the deficiencies and how best to be able to outline what those are and appeal the results of the appraisal? The Dodd-Frank Act has put into place prohibitions from undue influence on the appraiser. Usually those are considered to be areas where the borrower is threatening the appraiser with some kind of punitive action, or lenders, loan officers, real estate agents indicating that we're going to withhold work or payment or those kinds of things if we don't have a desired result. So in your reconsideration of value, you contact the lender, and in that reconsideration request, we're looking at, are there better sales? If they are, identify them and explain why they're better. If there's defects in the analysis, identify what the defects are, and the result might be that the appraiser will make the corrections and adjust the value accordingly. If in fact there are defects in the appraisal, it may justify the lender in obtaining a new appraisal that will be more reliable than the appraisal with the defects in place. We hope that this presentation has been helpful in helping you to better understand how the appraisal is developed, when there may be defects with the appraisal, and what you can do about it if you find yourself in a situation with an appraisal that falls short of what it should be. You can certainly feel free to contact us if you have questions, and please like and share as we try to provide additional information on knowing what it's worth. Thanks very much.